Hi, and welcome to Salesforce's Release Readiness Live for Spring 16. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mike Torres, and it's great to be back for our second session of the day as we are set to get into all the latest developments that our Service Cloud has to offer. Now, if this is your first time joining us for Release Readiness Live, welcome. The goal of these sessions is to take the release notes that you may have already read and bring them to life with live demonstrations and discussions with the product experts that are responsible for all of our latest features and functions. Now, you'll get to meet our product team in just a second, but before we get to meeting our experts, I think it's fair to find out how we're going to be engaging with them. So to cover that and more, I'm going to pass things to our own Sam Acuff. Hey, Sam.
Well, thank you very much, Mike. And for everybody who it's your first time, you're going to use Twitter or you're going to use the Release Readiness community, and you're going to use the hashtag Salesforce Live. We make it really easy for you to ask a question. We have a no question left behind policy. So if we don't get to your question on the air, we'll make sure that we get to it later on as we go through our Twitter feeds and also the community. Now, what about that community? Your Release Readiness and Feature Adoption community, which you'll see on the slide that they're going to bring up, that's your one-stop shop to make sure that you're connected through the release all the way from preview all the way through the release and into the next release. So if you haven't joined this, I'm posting in Twitter the URL for you to quickly go to this group and join, because that way you're always informed. But remember, Salesforce Live is your hashtag. And Mike, back to you.
All right, thanks, Sam. Now, we're about to pass things over to the product team so that we can get into the heart of today's presentations. But before we do, just one or two final points that we need to cover. As we've mentioned, everything that we're going to be discussing in this session is going to be particular to our Service Cloud. Now, if you've missed the Community Cloud before, or if you're not going to be able to join us live for any of our other broadcasts, you could find both long-form and bite-sized versions of our content at www.salesforce.com/release readiness. Now, as one final point that we need to cover, now we are going to be looking at our product roadmap for part of our presentation today. So in order to properly set our expectations there, we need to review Salesforce's forward-looking statement slide. Now, for anybody who's unfamiliar, this slide urges Salesforce customers to make any purchasing decisions based only on currently available functionality at the time of purchase. Simple as that. Now, without any further ado from myself, I'd like to pass things over to our product experts so we can get introduced.
Thank you, Mike. My name is Michael Chow, Senior Director of Product Management with Service Cloud. I've been with Service Cloud for close to 3 years now, and I focused on products related to community, self-service, mobile customer service.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Karthik Shankar. I'm a Director of Product Management here at Service Cloud. Today, I'll be talking about assets and work orders.
Hi, I'm Deborah Strusenberg, and I'm Senior Product Manager for Knowledge.
Okay, great. So really excited to be here to chat with you guys today about what we're releasing in Service Cloud for 2016. Just to kind of give you guys a little bit of a background, at the start of every year, we spend some time trying to figure out what are the major themes that we're trying to tackle for this year. So from here all the way until the end of the year with some major announcements at Dreamforce. And as we were looking toward the roadmap and all of our customer feedback for this year, we actually really decided that we were going to put Service Cloud, our resources on really three major themes. And what this includes is, number one, the Service Console, number two, the embedded service projects, and also work orders. Now, for a Service Console, this is what many of you use Service Cloud for, right? So you use us for your call centers, for your agents to have a very optimized UI to handle cases coming in. So what this is going to include is omni-channel routing presence, the console UX, intelligent service apps, service analytics as well, and also high availability and business continuity. So we have many teams working on those. I think traditionally in the past, Gautam or Clement has been here to present, but I'm here presenting on their behalf today. And the second piece of it is embedded service. So what this means for us is that we know a lot of our customers, you guys have your own websites and your mobile applications. And what we want to do is help you guys embed customer service into those websites and applications. So this includes a mobile SDK, so being able to embed knowledge and chat and SOS and cases into those mobile apps. Doing the same on your own websites. Lightning is a very big part of this. That's why Deborah's here to talk about the really exciting things that we have coming up in Lightning for this release, for Knowledge, sorry.
Not this release.
And social customer service and also service communities. You guys have probably tuned into the community section. There's a couple of things I wanted to show you guys that are very service specific within those templates, the community templates. So we'll be going into a little bit about that. And then the last thing is work orders. We're actually tackling a lot of the objects and the data model behind work orders. Karthik is going to be here to talk about that today. This is his first week here at Salesforce. That's how we do things here. So excited to have him on board to actually talk to you guys about work orders and all the things we're doing there. But this is going to include mobile applications that we're building, complex assets, service contracts, and also potentially a wave app in the future. But these are all things that we have planned for this year. So really pleased to be able to come and show you everything that we're working on. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump forward to talk about the Service Cloud console. So this release, the Spring 16 release, is actually a fairly small release for us compared to what we've had in the past. And the reason for that is we're actually doing a lot of major plumbing and a lot of trust work that's absolutely important for us as we move forward and keep on building on top of the console. And so some of the features that we're releasing are seemingly a little bit smaller on the smaller side, but they're actually very important and very highly requested features from our community. So the very first feature that we have here is preview hovers. And I'm going to go ahead and demo this for you guys. But this includes the ability to actually really preview the contents of a case without actually drilling into the case specifically. And this is a really huge productivity boost, especially if your agents have multiple tabs open. And speaking of having multiple tabs open, one thing that we heard consistently from our customers was that a lot of times your agents, they might have 10 tabs open, maybe even 50 sometimes. It can get to be a lot. And that actually degrades performance for the UI and for your agents. And that's not something they necessarily know about, right? As much as you tell them to please limit the number of tabs, maybe you would want to enforce this within the app itself. So what we've actually provided here is we have a new feature called tab limits. And this allows admins to define how many tabs would actually can be opened by an agent within the Service Console. And these limits are really meant to enforce best performance, not necessarily how much work your agents can do. You would want to use something else for that. So let me go ahead and jump over to our demo real quick. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to set this up. So here on my screen, you see the setup screen. And then we're going to go into settings for apps. So down here, here's an app that I've set up. I've called this tab limits. And I'm going to go ahead, and this is the settings for a specific console that you have in mind, right? And when I go to the very bottom of the screen, what you see is there's actually 2 additional checkboxes on the screen now. There's enable tab hovers. So this displays the summary information about a record when the user mouses over the tab. So I'm going to go ahead and enable this, and also enable tab limits. And what this allows you to do is allows you to specify the maximum number of open primary tabs and also the number of sub-tabs that you would allow your users to actually do. So I've set this to 5 and 5, and I'll go ahead and demo this in a second. So with that, I'm going to save this. And I'm going to go to the console here that I've set up. And what you see here is that this is our Service Cloud console, obviously, and with a bunch of cases, a queue of cases. And what you see here is I actually have several cases already open here. I have this case 7048 and 7100. And as I mouse over these cases, the first thing I'll notice is you'll see this popover where this actually shows you information about the case, right? So instead of forcing your agents to actually click into the case to see if that's the case that they're specifically looking for, they can quickly scan over it, look at the information about the case. And this is driven by the mini page layout. So this metadata is completely configured by you on what fields you would want to show, and even related lists as well. So now that I'm able to see these cases, so I have 5 tabs open here. And take, for example, your agent wants to open a 5th tab. When they try to open the 5th tab, what happens is a warning pops up that tells them, hey, look, to improve performance, your administrator has limited you to a number of 5 tabs and 5 subtabs. So they know that they have to close one of these tabs before they can actually open another tab. So once I do come here to open another tab, you'll see I'll open without any issues. And then not only is this can be used for the primary tabs up top. But for example, if your agent starts opening knowledge-based articles, right? So I've opened one article here, I go back to the case again, I open another knowledge article here. You'll see these sub-tabs get opened within the console. These can be limited as well so that you can ensure your agents don't have too many sub-tabs open. So both of these features, definitely a really huge productivity features that our customers have been asking for. This kind of goes along the philosophy of really helping our customers guide their users to have the best and optimal experience. So yeah, so these are the new features that's going to be live in Spring 16 in the console. And yeah, that's the major thing that's coming. So I went through the demo real quick. So that's for the console. What I'd like to do now is to talk about the community templates. And I think in a previous session with the communities team, they've already talked about the templates, about the builder, community management. And I think I wanted to highlight two things that they probably didn't highlight in their section. Two of the features that we've enabled that are more service focused, that I think you guys will definitely find useful, is the ability to put a live agent Lightning component within the template itself. And I'll show you what this looks like and how you would be able to do that. But you'll be able to embed a live agent into any community builder page. This will be available as an App Exchange package. That's not available now. It should be available sometime in February. So it's going under security review right now. The second feature that I wanted to show was lookup field support within the case publisher. As most of you know, the case publisher within the community builder, it supports many different type of fields and supports pick lists, but lookup fields is something that we haven't supported in the past, and many of you have been asking for support for lookup fields. And I'm pleased to tell you that we've actually started supporting that with the Spring 2016 release. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to my demo real quick. This is a community that we set up using a community builder, and this is the Napili template, if you guys have seen that. What it has in here is it has many Lightning components here. And what's new is this chat button that I have here, right? So right now what you see there, it says chat unavailable. And actually, before I go to that, let me actually hop over to the contact support. This will probably be a little bit easier to see. So when I go to the contact support page, what you see is you see the ability for a user to create a case, subject and descriptions. But what's new this time around in the Spring 16 release is that we've enabled lookup fields. So this is just a global action that you define within your org. And before, we've told people, do not put a lookup field in your global action, otherwise this UI will not work properly. But now you can. So now you can actually put a lookup field into the layout of the global action. And if you take, for example, if I want to just look for an asset, for example, a cable, for example, here, it will actually look inside the org and search for assets, anything in the asset object that's called a cable, and go ahead and you can select that. And when you create the case, you can select any type of assets. And this isn't just for assets. This is obviously for any object within Salesforce that your user has access to. They're able to select a cable and go ahead and create a subject and description. And as always, we've shown this many times in the past, but when you actually start typing in a subject and a description, we actually, on the right side here, we actually show you knowledge-based articles that actually might deflect you from creating your case. Really gotten a lot of great feedback from a lot of you on this feature. You guys love it because it actually deflects the number of cases that are created within your org. And Deborah loves this because it shows knowledge articles.
Do love that one.
So that's brand new in Spring 2016. Now, hopping back to this, you notice that I had a chat button available here. And right now the chat says that the chat's unavailable. It's because there's no agents online. So what I want to show you is I'm going to come here to console. This is a different console than what I showed you before. And in my omni-channel status here, I'm going to set myself to being online. So now I'm an agent available to take incoming chats. And the next time a user actually comes to this page, what you're going to realize, what they're going to see is they're going to see that there's the button now says chat now. So this button is pre-configured to actually determine whether an agent is available to talk to the customer or not. From here, they can click Connect Chat Now, and then you'll see on the agent side, I'm going to go ahead and accept this chat. this chat pops up, and here's the chat itself. And you'll see on the customer side here, they can actually write a message to have an issue with my cable, help. When they can go ahead and submit this, and the agent would see it on their side. So this chat button, you were always able to do this, but what we've done here is we've actually made it a lot easier for you to just actually embed this into your Lightning template. Now, what I wanted to show you is how you actually set this up real quick. I'm going to go to the Community Builder here. And when I'm in the Community Builder, obviously we see the layout of the page that we were looking at. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come onto the page editor here, and this component here you see here is the Live Agent chat button. So what they did was they actually took it from the left-hand side. You'll see. Let me search this real quick. So the Live Agent chat button, what they did was they took this and they dragged it onto the page. And in this case, I dragged it to the right column. And clicking on this allows your admin to actually configure this Live Agent chat button. So very easy declarative configuration. All you need to do is give us your org ID, the deployment URL, your Live Agent endpoint, and you can actually set the text here to chat now or chat unavailable. And this is all out of the box before you actually had to do custom coding. But this is going to be live in the App Exchange in February. So definitely wait for this. This will make setting up Live Agent chat in your community templates a lot easier than it has been in the past.
That's fantastic, Michael.
Yeah, I think we've gotten a lot of feedback for this. Everybody's been really excited to see this. You guys use Live Agent. We haven't given you guys a lot of tools to easily put that in. So this is something that's going to make things really a lot easier for you going forward. So with that, let me hop over. I'm going to set myself up for the mobile demo. I have 3 demos, so it was a little bit hard to do this beforehand. Okay, great. So the last thing I wanted to talk about today is the Android SDK for SOS. So many of you know SOS has been live on iOS. And just for those of you that you may be new to Salesforce, may be new to Service Cloud, what SOS is it allows your end users that use your mobile applications, whether it's an iOS app or an Android app, to actually have a video chat with an agent, right? So sometimes cases or knowledge-based articles or Live Agent chat, that's not immediate enough, that's not fast enough. Your end users want to talk to an agent face-to-face. And what we've done here is we've actually enabled video chat within Android applications. So this has been available for iOS, now it's available for Android. So not only is this video chat, but it allows a customer to share their screen with an agent, and also the agent can actually write on the screen, draw on the screen to show the customer what they should be doing, what they should be touching on the screen. Now, with this, there's a couple things that I wanted to note that would be important for many of you, and many of you have been asking for this feature. The first thing is field masking. Now, what field masking is it designates part of the application that you don't want your agents to see. So this could be information that, such as social security numbers or credit card numbers, stuff that's PII, that's to make your app HIPAA compliant. Many people in healthcare or financial services, you guys have this requirement that your agents can't really see everything on a person's screen, right? So we're actually able to mask the text field. So when the agent sees it on the agent console, they can't see what's going on. When the customer is typing, what we do is we actually completely blank out the screen on the agent side, so they can't see anything that's being typed. And the last thing that was important for us to get live before this with SOS went GA was what we call agent availability. So we wanted to make it possible for you guys not to show the SOS button when there's no agents on the other end to actually pick up the phone per se, right? So when there's no agents online, the SOS button will be hidden. When the agents are online and they have capacity to accept an SOS session, we show the SOS button working. And lastly, when the agents are online but they don't have capacity to accept the session, we also hide the button there. So let me show you what this looks like for my mobile device. That'll probably be easier for you guys to visualize what this product is. So let me set up my screen real quick. Bear with me. So as an agent, I've declared myself online, available to do work. I have people calling me on the phone. Great. So what I wanted to show you here was, this is a mobile application on the right side. So this is an Android app, okay? And in this case, I've set up SOS on the top right. I'm gonna go ahead and click on this just to say that I wanna start an SOS session. The end user wants to talk to an agent, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and click OK. And on the left side on the agent screen, you'll see the incoming SOS session. From here, the agent, what I'm going to do is I'm going to accept the, I'm going to go ahead and accept the SOS session. And what you're going to see is on the agent side, on the agent console, you see exactly what you see on the customer screen, right? So on the customer screen side here, you see this Northern Trail Outfitter site, but on the agent side, you see the exact same screen. And what you can do is you can actually, when you draw on the screen, it will actually show up on the customer's mobile device as well. As an agent, what you can do is you can actually drag your video image to another part of the screen if you actually want to tell them to actually engage with another part of the screen here. And the customer on their side, they can actually drag this themselves too. So this is actually fairly easy to do. We get this question all the time, but you don't have to have video conferencing, especially if you don't want your customers seeing your agents, but you can actually have a one-to-one dialogue via voice. And then from here, what the end user can do is they can actually, when they click on the button, they can actually, they have controls to actually stop the video, to actually stop the mic, and also to actually close the session with the agent. So from the end customer standpoint, what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect from the session, and the session is ended on both sides. So really powerful, especially if you want to enable this sort of functionality inside your Android mobile applications. It's been live on iOS. We have many pilot customers that are using this today. But what we've wanted to do is really bring this really high-touch experience for your customers, for your agents to be able to interact with their end users. So with that, that's the demo. I wanted to show you guys just real briefly also, we now have a pilot program for the rest of the Service Cloud functionality. And not only is this SOS, which is GA right now, but on iOS, we also have knowledge base, we have case management, and we also have live agent chat. Available for iOS. The last three, they're in pilot right now. But if you have a native mobile application that you want to embed Service Cloud functionality into, if you want to do self-service, if you want your users to be able to create a case or talk to an agent using live agent chat, this isn't through web views and web pages. This is actually fully native code that would actually be inside your native application. We have a pilot program available today. Contact your AE and have them sign you up for the Service for Apps pilot. We're taking pilot customers right now. We're hopefully going GA with this later this year, but for those of you that want an early preview, please reach out to us. And this is something that we've been hearing from customers for a very long time, so very excited to bring this out.
Yeah, thanks. I think one thing that I'd like to thank you for is spelling out which of these features are going to be available in pilot and when they're going to be GA or generally available for all of our customer base. Okay. But speaking of our customer base, I know that you just showed some really interesting things, and we're going to have a lot of questions from our customers on that. So I'd like to turn things over to Sam Acuff to find out what are the customers saying, Sam?
Oh, well, we're getting a lot of shout outs for these features. It's awesome. Field masking, love that. It's interesting. You actually answered a question that came up before the session even started about how to get live agent into their community. So
okay, great.
That's exciting. If you didn't catch that, that is going to be on the App Exchange in February, yes?
That
and
is
it's
correct,
going
yeah.
through a security review right now.
Yeah, we're basically done with it, but obviously trust is our number one value here. We wanted to make sure that there's no everything that we put on App Exchange goes through a security review.
So I will make sure that when that goes out on the App Exchange, I'll post it in the Release Readiness community so people know about it. So let's talk about some questions. Looking for a way to, well, no, that was Jason's questions. You mentioned something and I missed it, and something about switch statements. Does anybody recall that when you were doing your intros? Okay, I'm going to have to go listen to the recording then for that, because they're asking about that and I don't remember.
What product is it in reference to?
It was very early on Twitter when you guys were first starting, so it wasn't in your demo.
Okay.
Enable Service Cloud tab limits in Spring 16. Enable agent productivity. How many, though, to limit? So Nigel is asking, do you have a best practice around that? What would you suggest?
Yeah, I think that really depends. I think that, as I mentioned, that the tab limits are not necessarily a way for you to kind of limit your agents from doing how much they can multitask. For us, it's about performance of the UI. So I think that there's a couple of factors here. I think that you want to take into consideration how large of a screen are they actually using. Obviously, if your agents are on smaller screens, you probably want to limit to a smaller set of tabs. It also has to do with probably network, how fast your network is. And so I think there's a couple of things. I think what you want to do is you probably want to play around with the tab limits, see what fits in terms of the real estate that your agents have, and also try to understand, given your network performance, and also your computing power, if you get up to like 20 tabs, does that start slowing down the UI a little bit too much? It's something that you'll want to play with, and that's one of the reasons why we made it complete configurable.
Alrighty, so it sounds like a best practice then would be to do a ride along, set some settings, set that limits, sit with a service agent and do some performance observations would probably be the best thing for an organization.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, alrighty, so Kevin, that was for you. Let me see. Well, we have some questions about Live Agent and licensing around Live Agent because you've obviously sparked some major interest. Can you talk to me a little bit about the licensing for Live Agent? What license do they have to have for it to be included, and can they buy it as a feature license?
Absolutely. So Live Agent, while that Lightning component that I showed you for Live Agent will be available for everybody in the App Exchange, and for those of you who have communities, you guys have access to Community Builder in our templates, and you can put it onto the page. You obviously need an agent to be able to field those incoming Live Agent requests. And that will be done via an agent who has a Live Agent license. Live Agent is actually an add-on license on top of a Service Cloud license. So for this function to be useful, you're going to need a Live Agent license on top.
Okay, alrighty. And I posted in Twitter the link to our additions and pricing for anybody who wants to take a look at that. That's there.
Great.
Jennifer is asking about, does SOS let the agent see the customer?
You can. Yeah, you absolutely can. I didn't show it here, but you can actually not only have the camera of the customer, the camera focused on the customer actually communicate that to the agent, but you can also use the back-facing camera as well, and that's the camera that, for example, if you want to see what the customer is seeing, right? Their phone is pointed towards a TV or a radio. You can actually set it up that way. But there's several configuration options when it comes to SOS, but you can definitely do that.
Well, that's awesome. Mike, I think we should continue on. We'll get some more questions, but I think we should go back to our product managers.
All right, sounds great, Sam. Thank you, Sam, and thank you, Michael, for showing us those productivity gains with community templates, the console, the new mobile SDK.
Yes.
There's a lot for our customers to be excited for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I think one thing that our customers are going to be excited to learn a little bit more on are our new assets and work orders. And to take us through that, I'm going to pass things over to Karthik.
Thanks, Mike. Good morning, everyone, again. Let's dive right into hierarchical assets and work orders. Now, assets have been, the object asset has been in the product for quite some time now. And over the last year, we've been very aggressive in making some of the enhancements that you've been enjoying. And thanks again for all the inputs in Idea Exchange. We look at them and bring them into the product. Now, for Spring 16, we've added the ability to nest multiple assets and form a hierarchy, which you could use to model your bill of materials, for instance. I mean, the whole idea is we will enable you to now track service requests on an asset down to the very detailed component level within an asset. Like, if, for example, let's take a regular household refrigerator. It has so many serviceable parts And in the past, you would have been able to model these as like the refrigerator, the compressor, maybe the water filter as individual assets and no associations between them. But with Spring 16, you will be able to kind of pull things together all under an hierarchy. So a refrigerator has a compressor, has a water filter, has a thermostat, and so on and so forth, right? Diving a little deeper into the object itself, there are two key fields that one should be aware of. First is the root asset, and then the second is the parent asset. Now, the parent-child relationship needs no explanation. It's pretty straightforward, but I'd like to spend some time talking about the root asset. Now, this is a special asset which is system-owned, meaning the platform owns it, it sets it, and maintains it for you. However, you can access this information either on screen or via APIs. Now, what root essentially means is it is your big asset, in this case the refrigerator, and all of the other component assets are now part of this tree hierarchy. So to the left, you can see that the refrigerator is the root, you have the water filter, you have the compressor, which in turn, even though it's a child of the refrigerator, it also has the relay and the overload protector as children within the compressor. So this way you can, I mean, this is a very trivial, simple example, but you can think about all the different complex scenarios that it is now possible for you to model within the platform. One thing to note here is that this hierarchy can go 50 levels deep, and one root can have up to 2,000 assets under it. We're hoping that should be sufficient to model most of the products out there. However, the reason we are doing this is this is just the beginning of a lot of things that we want to do. We essentially want to be able to pull in everything, information about almost everything that's there within the platform, within your account and organization. For instance, starting all the way from the price book, which has the details of your assets, but they're as products with a price. And when somebody creates the opportunity, they're now able to bring in all of those products as line items into the opportunity, which then transfers into the quote and then into the order. Now, once that is all set up, we want to get to a state where all of the line items in the order now transform into assets for that account automatically. And actually, we talk a little bit about this later, but one of the use cases here is going back to the refrigerator example. Let's say you place the order for it, the first thing you want is it delivered and installed. So we can automatically now generate a work order for delivery and installation. Related, since you have all this information, you're also able to generate the service contracts and associate it with the order and the assets. And we'll actually talk about how service contracts can lead to work orders. And actually, I'd like to segue into work orders now and come back and talk about these use cases a little more in detail. Now, work orders are brand new in the platform today in Spring 16. These are standard objects that will help you track services that you perform either on the asset or otherwise. Right. These are foundational, just like case object is, and you can see, as you can see on the right side, you've got your triggers, your page layouts, you got your resource types, and it is this very similar to any other foundational object in the platform today. What it also means is it also has pre-built integrations with all the other objects. So again, you can link it with, it's already linked to accounts and contacts, and of course cases and assets, and so many other things that are available to you out of the box. One thing I feel also want to mention is we want to also model this in like it is in real life scenarios, right? So every work order can have a number of work order line items. And I will walk you through this in a demo and show you how all of these fit together. One thing that I want to call out here is this is now available with Spring 16, but you will have to go in and enable this for your account for it to start working. Now, so how would you use this combination of hierarchical assets and work orders in particular? Previously, I touched upon a case where you had the asset, you had it ordered, and then you had a work order created for delivery and installation. Another use case that this could potentially help solve is a break-fix model. Going back to the same refrigerator example, it stops working, so it's broken. So I call the customer service agent, and they create a case. And as they are looking at the case, and we'll see this in the demo, they're able to see that I have this asset, which is the refrigerator. They're able to very quickly create a work order and assign it for a technician to go take a look at. Another thing that we want to also address is the idea behind planned or preventative maintenance. Going back to the service contract that was generated or linked to the order, now we know that this account has this particular asset, and because of everything else that's available, you also know that you need to be able to schedule maintenance visits on a periodic basis. And you are able to do that automatically, in the sense that, let's say, it's the same refrigerator needs the water filter changed every 6 months. So not like today, but closer to the event, maybe a day or two, or as is required in the business process, you could set it up so that a work order is generated like the day before, and then the technician can now go and fix the issue preemptively. Now, actually, let me pause there and jump to the demo and show you all of these features. So I'm on the account screen now, and let me pull up the account here, Acme. And going back to the hierarchical asset examples, or the example, within the account, you're able to see all the assets that are available, and this is the refrigerator. Let me click on that. I like to point to these two new fields that enable hierarchy that enable hierarchy. One is the root asset. Like I said before, it is set by the system, so it's locked. You don't have to set it. It's automatically done as you build your hierarchy. And the other is the parent. So obviously, this is the refrigerator, so this is the root. But let's look at some of the other assets that are part of this account. I'm sorry. Go to this list. Let me show you an asset called the start relay. So this is a component within the compressor, and it has a kit. So for instance, this, though a part of the refrigerator, you can see that this is the root here is the refrigerator, but the parent is a kit which has a combination of relay and overload protections. So when you click on this, you're able to see the hierarchy and stuff like that. So and all of these are bundled together and are now will be available in Spring 16. One of the things that you see on screen is the hierarchy, a visual representation of the hierarchy. This is a custom thing that we're building. In the future, we will have an out-of-the-box hierarchy UI widget that will help you visualize all of this better than what you're seeing today. So now that we've talked about the hierarchy within assets, let's look at how work orders come into the picture here. So going back to the break fix use case, so the customer calls and complains about the refrigerator not working. So all the agent does is looks up the customer, looks up the asset in this case, and they can very easily go in and create a new case. And notice how most of all of these fields are pre-filled because it's all linked. And let's say this is a case because the customer called in, it's a phone, and I'm going to say the refrigerator stopped working. And save it. Now notice a few things here. Once I've saved it, I'm now able to go in and create a work order. Now, a few things to notice here, and I think I skipped that. When you enable work orders within your account, you can also play around with your page layouts and the quick actions bar, so that I would encourage everybody to bring those into your layouts because you need to see work orders. Let me also switch here and show you what it looks like in the quick action bar. So let's now create a work order. It's very simple, and all you say, all the information that you need is now pulled into the work order from the case and the asset. This is another custom thing that we built called Explode Complex Assets. I mean, just to show you the power of the model. And when we create this, you can see that the work order is already created. And when we drill deeper into the work order, you see all the work order line items created for this particular case. Again, remember, this is a customer calling with an issue that the refrigerator has stopped working, and you need somebody to go and have it check out every component in the refrigerator just to make sure and identify the issue. So this is a very, very easy way for you to generate the work order and generate multiple work order line items, so you can look at keeping track of every asset within the main root asset. So that's work orders in short. And again, all of these are interrelated. So when you go back to the asset, for instance, you will be able to see a list of work orders and work performed on the asset. So this helps with keeping track of service contracts, warranties, and other entitlements. And again, when you look at the account, you're going to see all of this information anyway. That's the end of the demo right now, and I want to reiterate that this is just the beginning of a lot of different things, a lot of powerful things that we want to do within the product, and we will expand this to provide a lot more powerful capabilities, out-of-the-box capabilities, so customers can benefit from this.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, my interest is already peaked, seeing what you've shown us, and just knowing how well that's going to play with our other automation tools like workflow rules and the process builder. So I mean, I'm very excited to see what customers are saying about how they're planning on using assets and work orders. But that's enough for me. Let's actually hear what the customers are saying.
Well,
Sam, what do you see?
I have a great question from Paul. He's asking if you're using a custom object that you've built from work orders, is now the time to start planning on migrating to this new standard object? And what would you recommend?
Yes, our recommendation is to migrate to the standard objects that are available out of the box, and so you can leverage a lot more of these capabilities that we're building, not just now, also in the future.
Now, what edition do you need to have to use work orders? Because I'm not sure it's available in professional edition, right? I think you have to have enterprise and up, or?
Correct.
Okay.
And good point. Thanks, you brought it up. So within Service Cloud, you need to be in enterprise and above in order to access these two objects, at least work order object.
The advantage I see is that all of these things like process builder and master-child relationships that you have that allow workflows or process builder or flows to work, it just becomes easier because now it's a standard object that has those built-in relationships in that data model. Am I getting this?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And so that leads to the next question from Carol. Carol is really excited about this, and she wants to find out some more information about how she can position this to her business orders, because it might be a very large change in her organization. So was this out as a beta for a while? Are there some Dreamforce sessions, or are we still building those assets?
Now, these will be available in Spring 16.
Right, she knows that, but she wants to talk to her business owners about it. So she was wondering if we have some materials, or if we can give her some guidance on how she can speak to her constituents about this new feature.
Now, of course, so there are a lot of new things that are going to be launched pretty soon. So I would like to reach out to her offline.
All right. So Carol, we're going to get you guys connected, because I think once we've got that figured out, we'll make sure that we publish that in the release readiness community for people's use. That is what I have right now On work orders, let me double check Twitter one more time, and if I don't have anything new, then Mike will go back to you.
All right. Thanks, Sam. And thank you, Karthik. I mean, one of the things that I've noticed as you went through your presentation is that it just feels like we're getting closer and closer to the Internet of Things that we've been speaking about for years. And the assets and the work orders that you've shown are a definite step in that direction. So thank you very much.
Welcome.
Excellent. Now, to round out our presentation on the Service Cloud today, I would actually like to turn things over to our most knowledgeable product manager, Deborah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm here to talk about Knowledge, back from last time. I have some great things to announce again about Knowledge this release. Really happy to be bringing this to you all. So the first part of what I'm talking about today is just extending the reach and visibility of Knowledge. We talked about that in our last release. Michael talked about what's happening in Embedded with Knowledge being available through Embedded as well. And one of the ways that we're also extending reach is by adding read access for Knowledge to Chatter Plus and Force.com licenses. So there may be some question around exactly which licenses this applies to. I definitely recommend that you talk to your account rep about that to get some more clarity. For example, the Chatter free and Force.com free licenses, it's not included in that, but there are other Chatter and Force.com licenses that it is included in. The purpose of doing this is that, sometimes when users are using these particular licenses, you may not be able to purchase a full license for them just to be able to read the Knowledge articles. And you don't intend for them to actually be authoring Knowledge, but you need them to actually have access to read. And so this is the purpose of us adding read access to these licenses. So when you're using, you're using Knowledge to collect important information about your business that you want to share out internally or with your customers, it's really important that we make sure that they can access it where they need to be. And we figured that Chatter, the users of Chatter and Force.com have a need to be able to read articles, and the folks that you have that are authoring them need to be able to share that with them. And so in the past, you would actually have had to buy a full add-on Knowledge license just to allow Chatter Plus and Force.com users to be able to even see a Knowledge article. And we didn't think that made a lot of sense. If you're not intending for them to have authoring rights, then we wanted to extend that reach and just make it possible for them to be able to see what you're actually collecting. So that's what's happening with those licenses. So for more clarity, I do recommend talking to your account rep and making sure that it's appropriate or that it works for the licensing model that you have in place. Next is page layouts for Knowledge. This is something that we've heard again and again, that people wanted to have more flexibility. Knowledge page layout, we've had one page layout per article type for now many years, and in Spring 16, we've added the ability to have multiple page layouts and assign them per profile. And this is one of our top 10 idea exchange ideas, so I'm really happy that we're getting it out there and delivering this functionality. And it's actually going to just extend as we add additional new platform features to the product going forward. So this is one step in the right direction, and you'll see more functionality taking advantage of that as we go forward in the next coming releases. So in this screen, you can see that we have a couple of different page layouts assigned, and they're associated with different profiles. So I'll show that in setup when I do the demo. The next great feature that I'm really happy to announce is validation rules. And this is, again, one of our top 10 requested idea exchange features for Knowledge. Really adds an amazing set of power to Knowledge. I'm sure you've used it many times with other objects within Salesforce, and we've heard the requests. I've talked to many people at Dreamforce the last couple of years about how important this was to you, and so really happy to announce that we have validation rules now. So I just wanted to share a couple of use cases of how you might use validation rules with Knowledge, and I'll demo these as well. So maybe you want to have a field required per article type, so you can use it for that purpose. Really, for anyone who's not familiar with validation rules or who doesn't use them already, the purpose behind them is to keep data integrity and to set some rules about what which articles can be saved if the data doesn't match that. So it will actually not allow you to save the article if it doesn't meet the criteria that you have set. So in this case, you can use it to say that a field is required in a specific article type. That's a good basic use case. You can say that it's required if the value of another field is set to something specific, either a pick list or just a regular text field. So you can kind of make it dependent on if one field is set to a certain value, then now I have a dependency that this value in a separate field has certain requirements around what is contained there. I'll demo that. It's a little easier to see it, but then you may also have a user with specific information in their user record that they can only modify certain fields in an article. So I can show you a demo of that as well. And you could say that a user with a specific user profile also can only set, for example, the channel. This has been a long-standing request because channel has not had field level security on it in articles. And so you can use validation rules to say only people with a certain profile or a certain field in their user record can set the channel to, let's say, maybe they have to only use internal only, or only certain people with a certain profile can set it to public. So that's a really important functionality that in the past you had to create, workflows and approval processes to manage that because the field itself could not be contained that way. So validation rules is a great way to solve this particular problem that's been longstanding and that I know people have asked me how to work around that in the past. And then just a final use case is a field is required when validation status is set to certain values. So maybe if you have a validation status field set to work in progress, maybe you don't care if certain fields are set because you know that people are still working on the article. But at the point in time that the article has moved along in its life cycle and moved to a state of validated or validated external, which is what you would put it in when you're sharing it out to your customer base, you may want to make sure that certain fields have been filled out. So for example, you don't want it to go out with an empty resolution field or an empty symptoms field or workaround or whatever it is. So you can use validation rules to make sure that that is also taken care of. Couple of quick notes about knowledge validation rules. Validation rules will always show at the top of the layout, and that's just because of the way that the knowledge layouts are still a little bit different. We are working on that, as Michael mentioned before. We are working on knowledge for Lightning in coming releases, not in spring, but we're working on it coming soon. And so as we move forward, you'll have more flexibility about where you put your validation rules. But for now, they will show at the top of your page layout. A second item to mention is that error messages will only show one at a time. So we are working on this particular item. We're hoping that we will actually have that addressed within the summer 16 release. But for now, if you had multiple validation rules that were failing, you would only get one message at a time, and then you would have to fix that issue, and then you would get the next one and fix it after that. And then the final item I wanted to mention is that there are a couple of fields about an article that cannot be used within the validation rule. For example, case association count. That's another item that we are planning to fix, but it may take us a couple releases to get there. So look at the documentation to figure out which fields those are. All right, so let's just get to the demo. Mostly it's to show you those use cases. Let's switch over to my laptop, and I'll show you where we can set it up. So when you go into setup, you'd go to the knowledge section. You would go into the article types themselves. And I have everything set up in this troubleshooting article. So we'll go into that one. Troubleshooting article type. And you can see now that there are both page layouts, which that section was there in the past, but you were only able to add one layout per article type. So now you can add multiple. This is what we were looking at before. And so I can show you that in the page layout, in this page layout, we have just one section here with information. And if I go back to the other page layout, I've added a separate section with internal comments. in it. And it doesn't have to be this way. You can actually move the fields around. It could be a completely different layout, but just for the this purpose, I just was showing that there's a different section and a different field in this particular one. In fact, I actually added a separate field here as well for this page layout. And then just like you would assign page layouts in any other part of Salesforce, you would go to page layout assignment, and then you can choose out of all of your profiles, which page layout they should be using. So this was a really exciting development, and I'm happy to have that and to share it with you all. So let's go to our validation rules. I think it may be useful to see some of this in action. So we talked about that you could have a certain field that is required. So let's just look at this one. So we said, okay, the valid symptoms are required. If we look at the error message itself, it says symptoms are required for a troubleshooting article. If the this is I'm gonna skip. That's a more complicated one. Let's go through them in a little bit more easy path. Okay. Validation status cannot be external. Let's look at that one. So I'm going to go into my test article here. I'm sorry, I'm going through it before I've even shown you how we've set that up. So it's very simple. It just says that the pick list for validation status, if it's validated external, it's going to fail. And it's going to give me this message that validation status cannot be external. So it's a very simple, straightforward setup. So if I go to my article, I've edited the article, and if I put it into that status validation external, and I save it, I get this error message, validation status cannot be external. So it won't allow me to save. So that was just a very basic use case, that easy sample one. Let's cancel out of that. Let's go back to this, and okay, let's go to this use case here. So for this one, we are saying that the symptoms field is required if the validation status is set to validated or validated external. So that means that if I save it as one of the other validation statuses, that will be no problem. But as soon as I move validation status to one of these values, I cannot save without the symptoms being there. So let's go back to that. Okay, so in this case, I actually do have some symptoms here. So I'm gonna just X that out for a minute. And, oops. And so because this validation status is work in progress, I should have no problem getting that out. Okay, so everything's saved, no problem with that. But as soon as I move the validation status to validated and try to save, now it says that I have a problem. And this is really important because validation status is what we use for kind of managing your article life cycles. So this is a really critical way. I know that I've had many people ask me again how to manage this. And the way that we would do it before validation rules is through approval processes and workflow. But that can get complex, and it can especially get complex with various article types. And you may have different workflows that you want to maintain for other purposes, and so it just makes the whole approval process and workflow complex to manage. So I think this is a really great addition to how to work with validation status and use some very simple tools to get there. All right, let's look at a couple other use cases. I just wanted to really make sure that I showed one more at least, which is using either your profile. Well, I'll show you both, but we don't necessarily need to go through them both. I can show you one example of it. But for those of you that use KCS methodology, one of the things that we talk about a lot is how to make sure that you have control over what people do based on their KCS role. And sometimes people will do that by creating an actual profile. Sometimes we do it through public groups. One easy way, if you really think that your profile is mostly the same and you don't want to have different profiles for each KCS role, and for those of you who don't know what KCS is, just go ahead and ignore this for a minute, but for a lot of our knowledge customers, they do know. This is KCS is a methodology. I should take a step back for a minute. KCS is a very rich methodology for managing knowledge, created by the Consortium for Service Innovation. And for anyone that wants to find out more about that, you can find it on serviceinnovation.org. It's a great organization. I've been involved with them for many years and have used the KCS methodology actually in an organization that I was running their knowledge program actually too. So I highly recommend looking into it. But just very quickly about that, there are different roles that people have been given, different levels of ability to publish articles based on their experience in the role that they've been given. So just wanted to click over to, this is a user profile. I'm logged in as you can see I have the name actually set to KCS candidate. This is a role in the KCS methodology. But one of the things that I did was, because I didn't want to actually have to set a whole profile that's different, because really basically things are mostly the same, then I've actually put a field into their user profile that says KCS candidate and who their coach is. So that's one way you could do this. Another way is by assigning a profile to a user. So I'll show that as well. So if we go actually to our KCS candidate, they have their profile is KCS support. And so when we go over and look at this validation role, you can set that if the profile does not contain support in it, then that person can only set the channel to internal only. You could do this other ways too. You could say, like I was mentioning with the KCS candidate, I could say that if they're of a certain role in their user profile, that they have to be up to a certain role before we would allow them to set the channel. So there's a lot of options available. I will have these in the documentation and suggested tips around how to use validation rules with knowledge. But just to demo this particular one, so because I am logged in as a KCS candidate and I do have support in my profile, I should be able to change the channel of this article that we were working with to have, customer, partner, public. I can do all of it. And I'm going to have to put my symptoms back in, so let's do that. Okay. Let's save that. Oh no. Oh, that's right, because okay. Let me show you why. So that error message came in because I do have that. So this is an interesting combination, and this is where I was saying before that different error messages may come up. So because I've set their profile, we looked at the validation rule, I have set that their profile with, because they have support in their profile, they should have access. But I also set that the KCS role in their profile, the actual field, if they are a KCS candidate, which is somebody who's actually being trained still, if they're a KCS candidate, they're not allowed to set that channel. So let me go ahead and fix that and log out. See, I did get that message. So that's actually showing it is working as expected and as it should. Let's get out of this particular article. And okay, we are online. Let's log out and log back in. So I'm going to log in as somebody who should be authorized because they are not a KCS candidate, they're a KCS publisher, which is somebody that is authorized to actually publish with more capability. So we have the KCS publisher. They're coming in. I'm going to go back to here we go. I'm going to edit the article. Okay, and now because I'm a KCS publisher, oops, I now have the ability to set these and save. Oh no. Demo issues.
It's okay. Well, I think our customers are definitely
Yep.
catching the gist of the kinds of value that we're introducing to a KCS, a knowledge-centered solution
Yes.
with the use of these validation rules.
Yes, yes.
Great. So Since we've done such a good job of introducing these new valuable components to our customers, I think it's valuable for us to find out what our customers are saying about what they've just seen.
Oh, well, okay. So you're getting lots of shout outs for the validation rules
Yay!
on knowledge. And Steve says, stick that in your attachment articles. So I think he was actually using attachments to clarify stuff in knowledge articles because he didn't have this functionality.
Right.
I love this question, though. Can you update the article type on an existing article? Currently, this is a limitation, and will this be coming in a future release? So number one, can you do an update on an article type? And then what would the process be to do that?
So the answer to that is no. We are working towards, in upcoming releases, it's not in spring and it's not in summer, but we are working towards, hopefully by winter, having a pilot or hopefully maybe even a beta version of actually moving away from article types and moving to using record types. And while it probably won't be available when we first beta and release knowledge with record types, we have been working on a plan for being able to make a change of your article type when you're changing from one record type to another. There's already patterns for doing that with cases, so you can see that and play with that functionality in a custom object or in a case where you can switch from one record type to another. And so our plan is to be able to implement that at some point once we release knowledge with record types. It's a little tricky with knowledge. It's a little more tricky with knowledge than it is with other objects because we have to think about what happens to all of the other versions. What if you've been translating? What happens to all of the translations? Do all of them switch to the new type? But then that may mess with your data integrity. Should they stay in a different record type? So there's a lot to consider, but that is something that we're working on and thinking about how to solve.
That was a good question.
Yeah.
This is a great question. So we use approval processes for our FAQs, and they want to know which would run first, the new validation rule or the approval processes. And I believe that a validation rule runs on the save event, correct?
Yes, yeah, the validation rule would definitely run first.
Okay, so you're saving the record, whereas an approval process is something that you initiate
Right.
after a save, correct?
That's right.
Do I have
That's
that
right. You have that right. It will have to pass the validation rules before it would get sent to the approval process.
Yeah, so that should answer your question that validation rule will run first. And then I am seeing that, is there a plan to support validation rules on knowledge based on categories? That's an interesting question, and I haven't explored that.
Yeah, we would like to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not there yet. Data categories are complex, and it's just a little trickier part to be able to solve. But yeah, we would like to do that, but it is not in there in the spring release.
Okay, alrighty. And I'm thinking that that's what I have on knowledge. So we do have some more questions related to work orders, but is there a wrap up that you want to do first, or should I go
No, I think
those?
let's answer the questions first.
Okay, so we're going to do this rapid fire thing. I'm going to try to get some of these questions out. I love some of the observations. We have some very savvy people on the line here. So I think it's Reba. If I pronounce that incorrectly, please correct me. I can totally imagine renovating work orders to function as custom invoices. What would you say to that?
So yes, work orders would lead to invoices, and that's part of the things that we are planning and working on.
Okay.
So think about, you dispatch somebody to the customer side, they have the work order with details of what needs to be done, they're filling that out, and then once it's complete, an invoice is automatically generated based on the templates that you've already set up.
Very, very cool. All right, and now we have a question from Navade. I think that's how you pronounce your name. Let me know again if I got it wrong. How are work orders related to quotes? Is there any association in the data model between work orders and quotes, or are they disassociated right now, no relationship?
Not right now. So
Okay.
you need to get to an order before you can.
And
Great.
Steve is asking, where would I store a predetermined asset hierarchy?
Come again?
Steve is asking, where would I store a predetermined asset hierarchy? I'm almost wondering if he's thinking about some kind of template for asset hierarchies that he wants to just kind of clone or something like that. I'm not sure, Steve, if I've got it right.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to take that offline?
Maybe I need to understand the question a little bit.
Okay,
Maybe
all righty. So, Steve, I think what we need to do for you is to take that offline. And Carol is asking, do assets now pull one product information automatically from the opportunity? So is there any automated relationship, or is there something that she can develop with Process Builder?
Yeah, right now she would have to, so that doesn't exist today. Well, part of what we're talking about is those are the futures that we're working on.
Okay, and now I'm going to go back to SOS. When will SOS support desktop versions in addition to mobile devices?
So the desktop version is on our roadmap. Currently, our priority is around getting the mobile version stable, getting it rolled out internationally, and there's some things that we're doing in terms of getting the robustness, increasing the robustness of it. After that, I think we're going to tackle the desktop, but for now, it's not something we're actively working on right now.
Okay, and then Jason is asking, this goes back to the Service Console, looking for a way to open a community within a Service Console tab for agents to stay in the console.
Ooh. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay.
I had to get back to you.
Alrighty, so we'll investigate that and try to get an answer.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen anybody do that before. I'm kind of wondering whether you can actually, iframe something in, but I don't think that really achieves what you're looking for.
Okay, alrighty. So we'll ask that around. Another question is, when will service for apps be available in Android?
Great question. Typically, Android for us is about a release or two behind. So I think that right now we still have a fairly small Android team, and they're still kind of ramping up. I'd say they're probably like 1 or 2 releases definitely behind what you're seeing for iOS.
Okay, alrighty. And then agent availability functionality is great, but do you allow SOS users to queue like live agent users queue?
That's not recommended. So I think that there's a couple ways that you could go about doing that, but that's not anything that we recommend. I think that what we would want, right now SOS is using omnichannel. In omnichannel, there's not a really great way of kind of setting up limits in terms of the queues. That functionality is coming. So I think right now, everything that we're recommending is using the agent availability API to make sure that you do have agents ready to go to handle SOS requests.
Okay, alrighty. Let me check Twitter one more time, Mike, and then I'll turn it over to you. I have 2 things that I want to take a look at. We're just getting relate work orders to products, auto-create invoices with products. When work order is closed, boom. So Paul is talking about some things that you'll be able to do with Process Builder or with the native functionality. So lots of shout outs. Katrina's saying, it goes to show knowledge is helpful, though it can be complicated. So you really want to study and make sure that you understand knowledge well. I'm actually going through one of the modules right now on our help and training site to learn more about knowledge, and going through some Dreamforce sessions from this last year. What would you suggest if you want to get up and running as an administrator on Salesforce Knowledge?
Wow. I would definitely suggest getting in there and playing with it. I think it's really important to understand that knowledge right now is quite a bit different than the other objects. So you can't just go in assuming that working with any other object is the same. It's really important to kind of understand the differences about knowledge. Our documentation just got a big facelift with spring release, so I definitely recommend checking out the knowledge documentation. We've done a huge effort to really update that and provide some just better clarity, easier to find, good information about knowledge. But knowledge works very differently than other parts of the product for now, but we're working on it. We're actually, as you can see, we're bringing in a lot more platform features. That's going to be a very consistent theme going forward. We're going to continue to bring more platform alignment for knowledge so that you will be able to use it much like any other object and be able to, just use the capabilities that you're already familiar with.
That's great. And I put a link on Twitter for the Trailhead validation rules module.
Oh, good.
So for anybody who wants to learn a little bit about validation rules, the Trailhead is a great way to learn it. Mike, I'm done. I'm back to you.
All right, thanks, Sam. You did a great job with that. And guys, that's about all we had to share for today's presentations on the Service Cloud. Now, be sure to join us tomorrow as we present on both our Sales Cloud and our App Cloud to round out our Release Readiness Live for Spring 16 offerings. But if you've missed anything so far, or if you're going to miss anything tomorrow, you could find both long-form and bite-sized clips of all of our content at www.salesforce.com/release readiness. Thanks again to our great product team and to all of our customers for engaging and giving us great questions to base off of. On behalf of all of Salesforce, this is Mike Torres wishing you the best in success.